To Hosho presents greetings. Welcome back to the MBS YouTube channel. I am Ruckdog, and today I've got a carrier battle for you. As I mentioned in my What I'm Working On video, I've been trying to improve my carrier play lately, and this game is a part of that. Before we get too much more into it, I would like to apologize for not getting a video out in the last week or so. Truth be told, I've had a cold. Nothing real serious, but it made me sound very, very sick. And I decided it was probably best to wait until I was feeling and, more importantly, sounding better before doing my next video. Anyway, so in this battle, I am running the Tier 4 Japanese carrier, the Hosho. This is the first Japanese carrier in the line, of course, so this is sort of the training wheels carrier. And, you know, I've played both the Langley and the Hosho now for a bit, and I have to say I think I like the Hosho better. Now, the fact that the Hosho gets 2 torpedo bombers seems like it makes it a little bit easier for me to do significant damage. And, of course, I'm facing another Hosho on the opposing team, so that gives me at least parity when it comes to aircraft complement. Alright, so I've just wiped out his first wave of fighters with little damage to myself. I was aided there by the fact that I have the skill that gives me 1 extra fighter plane. So that's something good. And here I am trying to set up for my attack here on this cruiser. So I've got 1 group of torpedoes down, and now my other squadron of torpedo bombers is trying to come in. I'm trying to set up so that I kind of do a cross drop so that I get the target to sort of turn into my target. So I get 1 hit there. Just barely missed getting a second hit there, but now my second wave of torpedoes has dropped, and we'll see if I get any hits off of that one. Right now, I'm just trying to keep an eye on the enemy team, see if I can help out my team a little bit by doing some spotting. Trying to avoid flying my planes and letting them just sort of sit over the enemy fleet. Alright, I got a second hit there. Oh, there we go. I got that cruiser, I think. Yep, so as you can see, we're just a couple minutes in. I already got 3 torpedo hits, 4 plane kills, a sink. Shaping up to be a good match already. I'm definitely keeping an eye on the destroyers coming down here because this could potentially be a very bad situation for me if I'm not careful. So I've got my fighters back in operation here. I see that my opponent now has his second wave of fighters up in the air, and that's the last of his fighters. If I manage to take out that other flight of fighters, then he's going to be effectively out for the rest of the match. Spot another destroyer there. Gotta keep an eye on him. Now this is good for me because I've managed to sort of lure his fighters away from his fleet. I don't want to engage his fighters over the opponent's fleet because that's going to add the ship's AA into that fighter's AA, and that could cause problems for me. I might end up losing planes faster than him, which would be a bad thing. I mean, the Hosho doesn't have a lot of plane reserves, but that's just par for the course for being a low-tier carrier, right? I mean, none of the Tier 4 or 5 carriers really have a lot in the way of plane reserves. And even at Tier 4 and 5, I find that the ship AA is dangerous enough that you really don't want to hang out above it any more than you absolutely have to. Alright, so now I've got both of my torpedo bombers rearmed. I am keeping an eye on those red fighters, trying to make sure that they don't tie up one of my torpedo bomber waves. I send my fighters in to try and attack, but he's starting to flee back towards his ship, so I gotta be a little careful here. I do finally engage him. I catch him not in a great position, so I'm probably going to lose. Yep, there you go. I lost a fighter due to the ship AA. In the meantime, dropping torps here, trying to see if I can catch this cruiser or this battleship down here in a cross drop. There we go. Managed to finish off the enemy fighters. So now, effectively, I've got air superiority, at least when it comes to fighters, for the rest of the game. Alright, so here we go, trying to get a cross drop in on the battleship here. So this, I think, is probably one of the better cross drops I did. You can see how close the torpedoes dropped relative to each other, and in both in terms of spacing and time. There we go. There's 2 hits, and just missed the third. So that battleship driver did a pretty good job avoiding that, actually. Gotta give credit where credit's due. He minimized the amount of damage I was able to do by only taking 2 torpedo hits there. Alright, so the torpedo bombers are coming back. I'm just kind of hanging out behind this island here because I'm worried about all of those enemy planes coming down to the south. You'll notice that I've mostly kept the red torpedo bombers at bay, but I see that he's trying to send those over there down the side of the map, possibly going after that destroyer, but I also have to worry about the potential for a carrier snipe. He could be trying to send those all the way south and maybe take me out. You can see, though, that that destroyer has got some problems. He's got an enemy destroyer right there. He's got the torpedo bombers. Yep, the torpedo bombers are dropping on him. Yeah. Oh, well, he got the enemy, but now he's got to avoid all of those aerial torpedoes, and that's going to be a challenge for him. I'm going to try and peel off a few of the torpedo bombers. I'm being a little more less risk adverse with my fighters since I've already managed to kill all the red fighters. So I do manage to actually take out his wave of torpedo bombers here, so that helps. That helps cut down some of his offensive capability a little bit. But I'm still having to be careful with my fighters and make sure that they don't get flown over enemy ships to lose planes to AA. This destroyer here. So the red destroyers are doing a pretty good job at causing a lot of disruption at our base. Yeah, so what happened here is that my fighters didn't quite get to those torpedo bombers before they made the landing pattern on the carrier and basically became immune. So I had to pull those away because I didn't want them to get shot up by the carrier's AA. Carriers in Tier 4 and 5 actually have pretty good AA compared to everything else, so you have to watch out. Now, I have my torpedo bombers here. I noticed we've got a battleship that's more or less sort of sitting still. And he's also at full health, so I could, had a choice. So I could either finish off the damaged battleship here, or I could go in after the full health one. I chose to go after the full health one under the assumption that the rest of the team clustered around the cap would be able to take out the guy that's already damaged. Alright, so I got one torpedo salvo down, and two torpedo salvo down. And you notice that this guy sort of misplayed this. He was sitting still for way too long. So there's two hits right there, and I'm about to get at least another 2 or 3 hits on him here. So, word of advice to battleship players, don't sit still when there's planes coming in. You need to get a little bit of speed up so you can get some maneuverability and actually have a chance of dodging some of those. So I've lost a few planes at this point. One of my fighters, a couple of my torpedo bombers. My reserves, though, are still looking pretty good. I am starting to notice, though, that we're getting a little thin on the ground here around the cap. So now my goal is to keep that destroyer here spotted so that the friendly destroyer and battleship that are on the cap can hopefully take the guy out. And if I need to, I'm going to look at sending my torpedo bombers back over to take him out. I do want to keep my fighter relatively close to the ship, my ship, because I know that my opponent still has torpedo bombers. And I still have to look out for the possibility that he's going to come in and try and take me out. And I might need to defend against that. So right now I've got my fighters sort of hanging out here around the middle of the map, both doing that spotting on the destroyer there near our cap circle and trying to keep an eye out for another strike. Alright, so I see this damaged battleship there. Initially I'm going to send my torpedo bombers after him, but he may or may not be alive by the time my torpedo bombers get there. I do spot my opponent's next strike wave coming in, so I'm going to go ahead and send my fighters after those, see what I can do. Taking a little bit of AA there as he flies over the battleship. Probably not ideal, but again, like I said earlier, I'm being a little bit more... I'm taking a few more risks with my planes now that I've got the enemy's fighters more or less negated. Alright, so I get one torpedo salvo in. And if I get a hit, this might be enough to finish him. And yes, there we go. Kill secured. I guess now I'm going to see if I can finish off this guy. But I notice that I'm taking some fire. Oh no! Who's shooting at me? And that's when I noticed that I've got a destroyer coming in from the north there. So I figure that's probably bad. So I get this torpedo drop in. It's a pretty cumbery drop, and my target gets destroyed anyway. So at this point, it's back to base for that torpedo bomber. Awaiting instructions. Returning. So at this point I'm trying to shut down that one torpedo bomber, but he's only one, and right now I'm more worried about what's going to happen when my opponent reloads. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my fighters back, get them rearmed and replenished. I'm noticing that I'm running into some trouble here. I've got 2 destroyers in the cap circle, and that could be a big problem for me if they get torpedoes off, because carriers in general aren't very maneuverable, but especially the Hosho. Not very maneuverable. So right now I'm trying to get off. Yep, see, there we go. 2 destroyer torpedoes. Fortunately, I was reversing, and I went forward in time to avoid those. But now I'm trying to get some torpedoes off on this destroyer and see if I can maybe finish him off before he can get any more torpedoes off at me. So now I've got 1 aerial torpedo, 2 destroyer torpedoes coming in. I'm turning hard, trying to avoid them. Trying to avoid him. Yep, I took a torpedo right there. I immediately used my repair because I was both flooding and I had my engine damaged. Still alive though, but right now I've got some big problems. I've got this destroyer. I don't have anybody real nearby to me to take him out, so I've got to try and get myself, 1, the heck out of Dodge, and 2, try and get my torpedo bombers cycled to get those that destroyer off my back. I also know that I've got incoming torpedo bombers, so now I've got my fighters back off the deck, and I need to send them north right away to take out those incoming torpedo bombers, because that's all I need at this point is the torpedo bombers and that destroyer to deal with. And the destroyer's still putting shots into me, but fortunately I'm not losing damage fast enough that I won't be able to get my strike off, so at least I've got that going for me. Alright, so here I go, trying to see if I can get at least one of these destroyers. I've got a friendly destroyer now that's come over to help. I'm hoping he can take out at least one of those, but it looks like he's going to have some problems of his own here. Manages to avoid those torpedoes, and he manages to avoid those torpedoes. What a champ. That destroyer here on my friendly team is really helping me out here. I just gotta say, again, credit where credit's due. He saved my bacon here. Now, at this point, I have to figure out where to position myself. I am the last guy on the team, so, you know, it's up to me. So here I go, trying to get a torpedo into this destroyer here to finish him off, and I manage it. So there's the last enemy destroyer. So I've got that going for me. I still have a cruiser coming south, though, so now I've got to figure out what to do about this cruiser. Now, had a couple options here. One, I could wait for my other torpedo wave to rearm, because I've only got one that hasn't dropped yet, but I decided to go ahead and go after this cruiser with just the 1 torpedo bomber. See if I can get some hits. He's a little constrained here due to the fact that he's cruising against land. And I see if I can get some hits on him here. Now I've also got my fighters there, if nothing else, to just distract the AA from the cruiser. And notice I fly the fighters in first. AA on the cruiser starts shooting at him, and that leaves my torpedo bombers free to engage. Now, you'll see here I actually do manage to get a hit in, so that's something. That's a start. And then here comes the remainder of the torpedo bombers from the enemy carrier coming south, so naturally they're going to get gobbled up by my fighters. I'm skirting the edge, and I'm heading well to the east here, trying to stay away from that cruiser as much as possible. My thought process was here, if I can stay out of his gunnery range or visibility range, then I can probably take him out before he takes me out. Now here come my fighters. Yeah, this is not going to end well for those enemy torpedo bombers. That's definitely what I had to do here to shut down that threat from my opposing carrier. At this point, I realize, okay, I've got a cruiser here. He's capping. I need to take this guy out. 1, because he's capping, but 2, because I'm not going to be able to outrun him. He's got me sort of cornered here in the bottom of the map, and he will eventually find me. That much is certain. So right now, I'm trying to second-guess this cruiser captain and figure out where he's going to turn so that I can drop my torpedoes on the most effective track. So here we go. I'm hoping that his turning circle is going to be wide enough that I'll be able to get one of these torpedoes to land, and we'll see. And yes, we got him. Just barely clipped his stern. Another torpedo hit. And of course, that also helps by resetting the cap, so there's a defended flag for me. He's about to spot me. In another kilometer or so, he's going to be able to see me because he's going to be inside my visibility circle. So right now, I'm desperately hoping that I can get another 1 or 2 lucky torpedo hits and actually finish this guy off. One thing I unfortunately did not get from my last hit was a flooding. So that's not helping me out here. Now you will notice though that this attack, I sort of got a little lucky because the way the cruiser turned, he actually opened up range to my visibility circle a little bit. And there we go, it's another hit. You'll notice I'm not getting very good RNG from these torpedo hits. This guy has sucked up 3 or 4 torpedoes at this point. And I still haven't sunk him. So just you know, bad luck on my part, good luck on his part. Now, so at this point, I'm like, all right, I need to make sure this guy gets finished off here, and I need to make sure he does it right now. So I'm actually going to wait until I've got both of my torpedo planes healed up and rearmed so that I can then do a full-on cross-drop with them. And I also, about this time, I'm realizing I probably should send my fighter somewhere to try and find the enemy carrier, because I happen to notice that the clock is ticking down. We are now 4.5 minutes left. And the red team still has the ticket advantage, so in order to win this, I'm going to have to find and sink that other carrier. And given the time and everything else, I might not have a whole lot of time to do it. So here we go. I've got both of my torpedo bombers in the air, and this is where I have to try and pull off the cross drop, maximize my damage against that cruiser. So far, because I'm running directly away from him, and you know, I've got some reasonable speed at 25 knots, I've been able to delay his spotting of me. But it's not going to last much longer as I'm about to hit the edge of the map. So here we go. I'm setting up my drop pattern. I got 4 coming in from the north, 3 coming in from the south. Trying to get the torpedoes to meet at roughly a 60-degree angle or so. And see if I can get, like I said, those last hits that I need. So there's the first one down, second one down. The cruiser decides to try and turn to avoid the first one, but he doesn't. I actually get a hit off that first one anyway. And now I'm trying to get a hit here with my second one. And it looks like I'm going to manage it. Here we go. 1. Got him. Finished him off. And a high caliber to boot. Yes, I was pretty happy if you noticed my little smiley face down there in chat. Alright, so at this point, the last target remains is the enemy CV. So I've got my fighter up north. I'm trying to find that target. I've only got 3 minutes to go and the clock is ticking. Now, because of that cruiser chasing me to the side of the map, I have sort of misplayed this, and I haven't really quite picked up on it yet, if you notice. I really should be heading north at this point to try and reduce the cycle time between the enemy CV and my CV to try and get as many sorties off as possible. So I spotted him there in the corner of the map, so now I'm going to fly my fighter over to try and keep an eye on him. And now I've got my torpedo bombers coming north. I'm going to try and get those guys in there to do another cross drop on the enemy carrier. And it's going to be tough. I figure based on where the clock is at and the distance that I need to cover that I'm probably only going to get this one drop off. So I need to maximize this opportunity, I guess, because I'm not going to get a second chance to try and sink this guy. And if I don't sink the guy, then I'm going to lose the game. That's basically all there is to it. And we'll see here whether or not I make it, but I think probably most people out there suspect where this is going. Alright, so at this point, just try to keep an eye on them with the fighters, trying to keep them just out of AA range, but still within sighting distance. Just kind of babysitting the enemy carrier here a little bit. Here come my torpedo bombers. You'll notice that I've got the first one coming in, going farther to the north to try and drop my torpedoes as nearly simultaneously as possible. So Squadron 4 has to overfly the carrier and then turn back, while Squadron 3 is going to come more or less straight in. And to give the enemy carrier credit, he's doing a pretty good job of the evasive maneuvers here. He's forcing me to keep adjusting my path, which is not ideal. Because it's going to mess up my timing here a little bit. Alright, so here we go. A little bit of a delay on the second drop. Not as tight of an angle as you might like for a cross drop. They're almost parallel, as you see here. And it's going to allow the enemy to avoid all but one of those torpedoes. And that's pretty much it. We're under a minute to go, and I'm not going to be able to get my torpedo bombers turned around in time to get a second strike in. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. End of the game here coming up pretty soon. Yep, this ended up being a loss for me. I felt pretty good. I definitely made some mistakes in this match that ended up costing us costing the team the entire game. You know, first of all, I should have headed north when I knew the CV was up there to reduce the distance between me and him to improve my cycle time. I also should have tried to do a little better at that second cross drop, that last cross drop on the enemy carrier. If I had gotten a couple more of those torpedoes to land, maybe gotten a flooding, I could have very well bled him out before the end of the match. But as it turns out, I didn't quite get there, and that's a bummer. But what are you going to do? Still learning, right? Still learning. It's still just a Tier 4 carrier. So there we go. It's a defeat, but a good defeat. Got a decent slew of medals, a good amount of damage, quite a bit of experience, 2,724. Good amount of credits, 1,904, 711. Not bad at all. Top of my team by a pretty good margin, about twice the next person. And there you go, detailed statistics. Overall, this was another good loss, I would call it. I felt pretty good about this game. I definitely recognized I made a few errors, but yeah, like I said, still learning. Well, that'll about do it for this time. Until next time, good luck and good hunting.